Joining me now in the Cipher Brief studio is Roule. I guess it's okay to say one of my most favorite Middle East analysts. Norm served, of course, as the former National Intelligence Manager for Iran at ODNI. He remains very committed to the region, traveling there quite often and acting as an analyst on all things Middle East. Norm, I really appreciate you joining us to kind of help put some context around this issue. Thank you and welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Suzanne, as always.
So, the Israeli army says it carried out an assassination attempt on top Hamas leaders in Qatar's capital of Doha, where multiple explosions were heard. Hamas is confirming that its leadership survived the attack, saying their leadership survived the attack, but there were some casualties, including a Qatari security officer who was killed. So, Norm, let's just start at the beginning. What do we actually know about this operation at this point?
It's a great question. And of course, we're in the fog of war and things are going to become clear over a couple of days. But my sense is that we've probably seen a military operation that involved anywhere from 12 to 15 military aircraft. I wouldn't be surprised if this involved F 35s. Probably launched munitions that, based upon the type of the attack, were very precise. The sort of thing you expect to see associated with the 250-pound munition, the precise munitions that are used with offset attacks. This attack would have involved strong intelligence, likely at least one refueling operation for the aircraft. The intelligence was important because this was an important gathering of Hamas officials that rarely put together so many important Hamas officials in one location. This is an important attack because this is the first time the Israeli military in its entire history has ever struck a Gulf Cooperation Council country. I would expect there was some debate. I would be surprised if there weren't some debate within the Israeli government for that reason. This is about 1,300 miles from Israel. That's about the same distance as the strike from Iran. But unlike Iran, this is an ally, or at least a major non-NATO ally of the United States. Hence, again, I would guess there was a reason, there probably some discussion about that within Israel. But the leadership of Hamas did meet, and because of the lack of progress in the negotiations to date, Hamas's recalcitrance to release hostages, the Israelis decided that they would undertake this strike at this compound, which is located near several other embassies. This operation, described as Summit of Fire, involved, as I say, a number of strikes. The Hamas has stated that there were casualties with family members of Hamas members. Some staff members were killed. What we're going to see is funerals roll out over the next few days, and that's going to be our indicator as to the Hamas members who survived and those who did not. So these initial reports over the next 24 hours or so, I would really not put a lot of weight on those unless you see actual individuals show up in hospital videos, for example, and I would look to see which funerals do or don't take place.
It seems a risky endeavor at this point. Normally, I ask you, there are a couple things I want to jump into, but first, there has been a lot of conversation about whether the U.S. had knowledge of this attack in advance and how the White House has responded since. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the White House has stated that the Israeli government did provide advance notice. That language is very important. Because although the President of the United States did give a final warning to Hamas, and the President's final warnings tend to indeed have some finality to them based upon previous examples, it is almost certain that the United States would not have participated in the planning of an operation against Qatar, virtually certain. And indeed, the Israeli government would not have wanted the United States to be involved in something like this. But the Israeli government would have wanted to tell the United States, look, this is happening. So if your forces do see incoming, this is not an adversary's aircraft coming in. They should not see this as an attack on themselves. The White House has stated that advance notice was given, and I believe the reports state that the president instructed Mr. Witkoff to tell the Qataris, which would have given them just a little bit of notice so that they themselves would have been able to understand that this is not, say, the Iranians conducting a strike, and also to understand that this strike had a very limited purpose, was not part of a broader campaign, and that they themselves should not take any broader action to escalate the conflict.
It's really amazing for those of us who aren't in on these operations, which is the majority of us, on how quickly these things kind of are carried out and the notifications like we just talked about. Norma, I want to talk about what this attack, do you think, is going to mean for the region? It raises a lot more complications in an already incredibly complicated war against Hamas. What do you think this latest attack will mean now?
So I think it's important that we first consider some of the perspective about what this means in the region as a whole. Prior to the October 7th war, Israel's security doctrine was we have a great intelligence service, a superb military, and allies who will stand with us. But that didn't do much to stop the October 7th war. Since that conflict, their doctrine has changed, and we've watched in today's attack the latest chapter in that doctrine. And that doctrine now is we have a superb intelligence organization, and it will identify our adversaries who are out to kill us, and our military is going to get to them first, no
Wherever
matter
they
where
are.
they are, no
Right.
matter where they are. And we will take out high value targets using precision military technology that is far beyond the capability of any of our adversaries. And this will be anywhere, wherever our adversaries may be. And this started out with Beirut. This started out and this moved to Syria, and then it turned into Iran with Hania, and now we've seen recently in Sana'a, and now we've seen within the GCC itself. This is a brand new Middle East in this regard, and I think you're looking at for the Middle East as they look at Israel. And some have said, is Israel a disruptive actor? And I think that's a wrong characterization. But it is a correct characterization to say that Israel will not tolerate the presence of aggressive, lethal actors plotting the death of Israelis anywhere in the region any longer. And indeed, just 2 days ago, the same actors that Israel attacked today were meeting the Iranian foreign minister, Arakchi, I think in the same location where they met, where the Israelis attacked. And Qatar has always been a very special location in this regard because Qatar was sort of a Switzerland, if you could use that example. For some years, people could meet the Taliban, Hamas, various U.S. administrations tolerated this. Indeed, the Israelis sent their own personnel to meet Hamas interlocutors there. And these Hamas interlocutors had blood on their hands. Clearly, that has now come to an end. So the GCC, which is no friends of Hamas, and has had its own issues with Qatar, they will deliberate this issue. They will want to see how the dust settles. They will have a common position. They do not want this to escalate. But at the same time, they're looking at a region that is increasingly sensitive to this new Israeli posture. They're looking to a region that is very sensitive to the incessant violence and the incessant scenes of violence that you see in Gaza, a war that appears to have no end, and an Israeli policy which is a journey of violence and doesn't seem to have a destination of a diplomatic solution. This is a region that is challenged in many ways, and I think this is a very difficult time for regional leaders.
I can't even imagine what it would be like to be a fly on the wall of that Gulf Cooperation Council session that's going to be coming together, I'm sure, to discuss how to respond to this. Norm, do you have any sort of like initial reactions or thoughts on how Doha may respond? And then I also want to know what you think about how the U.S. really should be shaping events moving forward, might be thinking about this strategically.
Well, the Qataris have indeed responded robustly. They've condemned the attack, unsurprisingly. This is a violation of their sovereignty. They've described this as a cowardly attack of their sovereignty. They will certainly withdraw from the playing a role as an interlocutor with the Israelis. That's unsurprising. This also means that the Qataris will call upon the GCC to stand with them in this position, and that's likely to happen. They will ask the United States to restrain Israel from conducting similar attacks in the future. The United States will certainly do so. The United States does not wish to have a challenge, problem of this nature with the Qataris for a number of reasons, ranging from our military relationship, our security relationship, our investment relationship with the Qataris. There are a variety of different reasons. But the Qataris are going to want to maintain their domestic security, and they're not going to want to raise this as a broader problem. But in the end of the day, there's a reality the Qataris have to deal with too. Their commercial relationship with Iran through the South Pars gas field, that's not going to go away. So their gas relationship is going to stay. But their engagement with Hamas, it's probably not going to be the same in the future, if only because most of the Hamas leadership is gone, and the talks aren't going to continue. And I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Yeah, I'm curious actually, something that you just mentioned about there would be an expectation that the U.S. will discourage Israel from future operations like this. Norm, do you really think the U.S. has much influence over what Israel does? Or maybe a better way to ask that question is, how much influence do you think the U.S. really has over what Benjamin Netanyahu decides to do at this point?
I'm not sure that's the right question.
What
I
do you think
think
the
the
right
right
question is?
question is, what is the U.S. paradigm regarding the Middle East? And I think in many ways, the Trump administration's approach to the Middle East has been quite consistent and quite clear. They seek to ensure that there is no conventional war in the Middle East that involves U.S. forces, and that includes a conventional war in the Middle East that is instigated by Israel, and they've stuck to that. They will, however, participate in military action if Iran moves towards nuclear weaponization or military or terrorist attacks against the United States. And we saw that took place. But again, they ended that conflict rather crisply. They will also pursue diplomatic activity robustly, speaking with almost anyone. Hamas, even if Israel's unhappy with it. They will speak with Iran, even if Israel's unhappy with it. And they will speak with these people, well, as they say, as the saying goes, until the cows come home. But this has got to be genuine talks. And if the Trump administration believes that their time is being wasted, as the president has repeatedly stated, he will speak until he believes his time is being wasted, and then their hell will be paid, or this is your final warning. And he's been quite clear on that. He will also provide military capacity to regional partners to conduct their own defense or regional offensive activities to achieve what they believe is necessary for their protection. And that could be regional actors conducting their own work against Iranian proxies, but also Israeli activities to conduct what it sees as its own work. So I think you might see a middle of the United States where it in essence says to the region, over to you to handle your own work, your own issues, because it's your problems to sort out increasingly, as long as it doesn't create a disruptive conflict that in essence ignites the region as a whole. So the question in terms of today is, will today create a region-wide conflict? Yes or no? Will an Israeli attack on the Houthis create a region-wide conflict, or the attack on Iran? If your answer is yes, I think the Trump administration would oppose that robustly. But if the answer is no, but it contains that aggression or deals with a regional issue, I'm not sure the Trump administration will necessarily stop it. And that's just this American's view. What do I know? So that's maybe how I perceive this situation.
It's a fascinating answer, Norm, to the question of influence or recourse and the many avenues and forms that can take given what's happening right now. A solution to the Gaza conflict really does seem distant. I know we've talked now for a couple of years about what does the end state look like for Israel? It doesn't feel like we're any closer to an answer, but what are the elements that you think we should expect to see if there is any kind of solution to this on the horizon? What are you looking
Well,
for?
here's another element where I've got to praise the Trump administration for a very consistent Middle Eastern policy. Again, whatever one's political views are, I can't think of another political administration in modern times that has devoted so much time and energy to the Middle East since its first moments in office. And we have seen even recently with the visit of former Prime Minister Tony Blair and former Special Middle East Envoy Jared Kushner to the White House that even now you see sort of layers within layers of activity and engagement and diplomatic engagement to try and come up with solutions that are outside of the limelight of what is a very contentious and very well trodden diplomatic path. I do believe that we can see how this chaos will end. I don't know whether it will end in the near term or if we will ever get there, but you can see some elements of what the region is looking for. So first, we will see some sort of humanitarian solution to provide the long-suffering Palestinians of Gaza with the food, the education, the medical care, the education that they so desperately need to resolve what is rightfully a stain, will be considered by historians a stain on our generation. And this is an enormous challenge because we now have some years of a population that have been denied this these capacities which was transform the nature of this society. And I don't think we yet understand what this means as to who they will become. What does it mean when you have teenagers who have not been to school for 3 to 4 years, who have not had not just education, internet, medical care, and have watched the world around them go in this direction? Who do they become in 3 to 5 years if they emigrate to other countries? Who are these people? And I think we're going to see some solution towards that involving the Gulf states and involving Gulf funding. And you're going to see Saudi Arabia and the Emirates in particular provide education reform for the Palestinian Authority or its successor, a reform of the engagement of the government of the Palestinian entity with these people and its population, so that payments are made that don't support militancy, and that human reform in terms of hiring is done that doesn't promote militancy. And last, you're going to see some sort of capacity done against corruption, because those have in essence undermined the effectiveness of the Palestinian Authority. You've got some problems here. You've got the issue of what do you do about the Palestinian Authority, which was only supposed to be around for a few months and is led by someone who is terribly unpopular and, again, doesn't seem to want to leave. This is Abu Mazen Mahmoud Abbas. How is he handled in that political construct in the future? How is that addressed? That issue will have to be resolved. You will have some replacement entity created, perhaps involving the Palestinian Authority or a successor. You will likely have this package put forward, I would think, if I were creating this, as an Arab European construct with American leadership. It's got to have American leadership. And then you would want to have this supported by Israel, but not as an Israeli idea, but not blocked as an Israeli idea. You're going to have something done to handle the problem of settlers and the West Bank issues so that a viable political entity is at least a construct in people's heads. But in the short term, the idea of a Palestinian state is something that is very popular to talk about by people who, in essence, have the time to talk about it at coffee shops and in think tanks, but don't have to say, well, how do you do this on the ground in a Gaza or in a West Bank without, in essence, creating the same mess we have today? That is years from happening. So I think creating a state-like structure and then building towards a state at some point in the future where the adults on the ground are going to say, we'll let the political actors or the people with time in their hands yak about a state, but we just want to get things working so that we can feed people and give them a life and then build towards that state. I think what I've just talked about in this messy way, that those elements are all going to appear, but we're not there yet because the violence of Gaza remains a process, and the Israeli government is committed to a military solution. It doesn't seem to have an end game yet for what it sees in Gaza. Hamas appears to be moving hostages into Gaza City itself because it sees that as a way of putting more pressure on the Israeli government. So we're still in this crucible of blood and violence for the near term, unhappily. So we need to get through this major phase first, unfortunately.
Norm, I think you've laid out some really important indicators of what success might start to look like in the Middle East in the longer term. You mentioned the Trump administration has put in so much investment in time and energy and focus in the region. During the first Trump administration, the Abraham Accords, of course, came into play, which have really been applauded from multiple parts of the world for bringing the region more closely together in cooperation in some areas. I know the re-embracing of Saudi Arabia after years on issues from AI to energy has been somewhat of a positive. But let me just ask you bluntly, is the return of investment for the United States going to be worth what the Trump administration is putting into it? Because there's a limit on U.S. administrations before they change over again, but the Middle East seems to just be able to continue with the difficulties right through those administrations. Is it worth it? Do you think the ROI is going to show up in this term?
Well, are you talking about the ROI on the diplomatic investment for the
The
peace
U.S.
process?
diplomatic investment in the region, yeah, all the energy and focus that the Trump administration is currently putting into this, is it going to pay off for him?
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. I've been emotionally invested in the region for so many years. I've stared into the faces of too many Palestinians, too many Arabs, too many Israelis, too many Yemenis to see the problems of Iranian proxies and other issues to say, we've got to work this, we've got to stop missiles being fired against Americans, we've got to stop proxies trying to kill Americans, et cetera, et cetera. Anything we can do to stop that is worth the process. Anything we can do to keep American war fighters from being dragged into this is that ROI is it's good enough for me. And what often doesn't hit the press is there is a tremendous amount of work done by diplomats and intelligence personnel and military personnel in the U.S. government today and our partner governments in Europe and the Arab world today that gets absolutely no notice because we're too busy fussing around with what's in television and newspapers and politics. And it's producing slow, steady progress in this direction. But these are really hard problems, and it's these are dread diseases, as I often put it. And if they were easy to solve, they'd have been solved a long time ago. So I think the ROI isn't something we have an ability to care about because it's not the issue. It's so much as the victim we have or the potential victims, the Americans that would
The
be
cost of
victims of
not
the
being
violence.
engaged is
So
higher, right? That's
it's
what
in
you're,
many ways it's
yeah.
like the drone that's fired against the warship. People say, is it worth the $1 million anti-drone device fired against the $50,000 drone? And people say, well, no, but the $50,000 drone that strikes the 7 or 8 U.S. warfighters or the $5 million bridge, yeah, it's kind of worth it if you look at it in that construct. So yes, and so things can always get worse. And again, I must honor because I often hear about this, and I have people who talk to me from inside of various architectures. There is tremendous amount of hard work being done by diplomats in the United States, in various governments, who that gets no sunshine. And it's just easy to say that it's not producing anything, but they're working very hard.
Absolutely, Norm. I think you've done just a brilliant job of highlighting how incredibly complicated it is to measure success, and also at the same time saying how impossible it would be to walk away from this region. Very, very well done as usual.
The Middle East is in the middle. We're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Suzanne, thank you and Brad for every day for your open source memos and your piece that comes out. Every day I get that email and I just dive into it every morning and it's crisply written. It's great.
Thank
I
you.
just tell you, I can't get enough of it. I encourage everyone to read these things, et cetera, et cetera. It starts my day off and I want to thank you for everything you do.
I appreciate that, Norm. I'm sure that you will be appearing in tomorrow morning's open source report to help put context around what's happening in the world as well. So thank you once again, Norm. Will, former
Thank you.
national intelligence manager for Iran, now incredibly well sought after, highly sought after energy consultant, among other things. Thanks so much for joining us, Norm. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.